But thank you very much, Mark. I really appreciate it. I see a lot of friends in the audience. Hey, Nancy. Hi, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. And I want to thank you all for having me here. I had to be here because I work with Mark's wife, and therefore, just to keep peace in the office, I had to be here. But I do want to thank the Century Foundation. I want to thank Broader Boulder Approach to Education, and that is the best logo I've ever seen. Nebraska loves public schools. I want to thank you all for bringing us together tonight, and I'm sorry I can't stay with you for the whole event, but I'm happy to sort of kick off what I'm sure will be a great evening. Clearly, the work that you all do here is incredibly important. Together, you are shaping the lives of thousands of children, including the leaders who will hopefully come and take our places and continue to build a society where every child has the opportunity to be successful. And this idea, the idea that every child should have an opportunity to succeed, is truly the bedrock on which this nation has been built. It's an idea that goes by different names. And the name that has always resonated with me, the phrase that's always resonated with me, is the phrase coined by a writer named James Treslow Adams almost a century ago, who coined the phrase, the American dream. And it's the idea that, unlike in Europe or other class-driven societies, that here in America, people should not be limited by the social class into which they were born. This idea that in America, your zip code should not determine your destiny. Now, of course, I'm not so naive to understand the truth behind America. We understand that the American dream has never quite been real because it's always mattered. You know, your skin color matters, where your parents come from matters, your sexuality, your gender, your ethnic background, your sexuality. You can go down the list. All those things have always mattered. And indeed, we do know the truth that despite the idea of the American dream, we're not doing any better than Europe when it comes to income inequality and social mobility. Ooh, I can hear myself. We know that I think Britain, I think, is competing with us for the country where the permanence of social classes is most profound. And I, growing up here in New York, I think I first came to understood this gap when I was a teenager going to high school. And every day I would commute from East New York, Brooklyn, where I was born and raised, to Stuyvesant High School, the old Stuyvesant, the crappy building, not the one near here. But I was one of the few kids in my neighborhood to go to Stuyvesant. And it was a very jarring experience for me growing up, sort of taking the subway ride every day, an hour each way, and going between what was truly two New York cities. There was a New York City I was raised in East New York, which is a city that unfortunately experienced failing schools and poverty, unsafe streets. This is a city where equal opportunity was certainly not real, where opportunity to succeed for too many of my peers were few and far between. But I sort of saw this whole other city at Stuyvesant, this whole other city, where even in that old crappy building on 14th Street, where kids were put on a path to success. And not only would it assume they would go to college, as 99+% of my fellow graduates did, but they were given the tools and resources to go to college. I went to a high school where my homeroom sent 6 kids to Harvard, which is probably more than Nebraska, but more than many states. I don't know I know why I'm making Nebraska jokes. I don't know. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. I know, easy target. I know. But the truth is that the kids in that first city and the kids in that second city were no different. The kids in East New York, they didn't dream any smaller. They didn't love any less. You go into a kindergarten in East New York and you ask the kids what they want to be when they grow up. They're going to raise their hands and say they want to be firemen and astronauts and doctors. The kids were the same kids. The difference was not them, but the difference was where they lived, and therefore the opportunities that were available to them. But the good news about our country, the good news about the story of America, indeed the genius of America, is that in essence, our history is really the history of that American dream becoming more real every year in every generation. It is a certain but difficult path from the American reality to the American dream. And I think that's what Pre-K for All is all about. I believe that the biggest thing we can do to make the American dream real for all Americans is to make the promise of a public education real for all Americans. And that, in fact, one of the biggest bets we can make on public education in our country is to invest in early childhood education, to make sure that every child in New York City has access to a quality early childhood education. So hence Bill de Blasio's promise when he was still public advocate de Blasio, to provide a quality full-day pre-kindergarten seat for every New Yorker, every 4-year-old New Yorker whose parent signs her up for one. And by the way, I do think it's important to say that true universality was always central to our approach. We rejected the idea that this would be a means-tested program that would only serve some children. And we rejected that for a number of reasons. We all know that children who attend pre-K show better academic performance. They have a greater chance of staying in school and graduating. But we also know that while low-income children may receive greater benefits from pre-K, every child, not just low-income children, benefit from quality pre-K programs. In his study, Tim Bardick, an economist, calculates the substantial lifetime earnings from quality pre-K programs and found that the earnings for middle-class children was nearly as large as those for low-income children. Another benefit is economic. It's always a little funny when you talk about what it means to be middle class in New York City. I don't know any families for whom at $10,000, $12,000 you save from having a free full-day pre-kindergarten program is not going to make an impact on your life. That is real money in almost every income bracket. Another benefit of having universal pre-K is one that I know is near and dear to the heart of the Century Foundation, because we believe that pre-K for all can help further the cause of integration of our schools by creating opportunities for students of different socioeconomic backgrounds to play, learn, and grow together. In the Century Foundation's report on universal pre-K expansion in New York, it showed us that low-income students see greater gains in their reading and math skills when they learn in economically integrated environments. And we know that racially integrated classrooms help foster critical thinking skills and reduce racial biases, which are important traits in today's world. And I do want to say, because I know that working in a think tank, you want to make sure that your work has impact. And you should know that your work has impact for us, because we view it as a challenge. I really view the report as a positive challenge to say to New York City, do not lose the opportunity with this initiative to help further the cause of integration, one where we in New York City obviously have a long, long, long way to go. So when I joined City Hall last March, or March of 2014, I, like everyone else, was daunted by the task ahead. We had less than 2 years to go from a city where 19,000 children had access to full-day, high-quality pre-K to one where all children have access. And it's worth remembering that Bill de Blasio was basically pilloried for ever making any such promise. Remember, the New York Times said that he was not serious, that there's no way he could ever pull this off. No one believed it was possible. I think even in City Hall, he was the only one who actually believed this was possible, which is why he's mayor and I am not. But we just tried to approach this as a task with steps, and we broke down the task into 5 steps. All right. So the first was getting the money to pay for it. Second was getting the programs to place the kids. The third was getting the teachers to put in front of the classroom. This was always his thing. It's like, let's not open all these classrooms and then not have teachers in front of the room. Fourth is getting the kids in those seats. And fifth is making sure that we had programs that are of high quality. All of these things are works in progress. There are real challenges in putting together all of these efforts. But I believe we've made great progress in all 5 of those categories. So the first thing to do is to get the money. We have an odd politics here in New York, but we had an interesting political battle, as Nancy knows well. But at the end of the day, I will spare you that. But we were able to secure a $1.5 billion 5-year commitment from the state. And so that was the first step, having the money. We got that commitment in April of 2014. And by September of that year, we had committed to going from 19,000 kids to 53,000 kids in the first year, in advance of the full ramp up in year 2. So money is nice. It's definitely critical. But the second thing we had to do is to identify thousands of new seats for these children to sit in. And that involved bringing on new seats from scratch, but also converting thousands of what had been half-day seats into full-day seats. Now, I will say that if you had told me that getting the money from Albany would be the easiest part of this expansion at the time, I would have said you were crazy. But I have to say that probably wound up being the easiest part of this expansion. We went from 271 full-day sites 2 years ago to about 1,900 full-day sites today. Many of these are in public schools, but most of them are in early education centers, nonprofits led by some of the folks in this room, mom and pop, small business people, churches. We also created several standalone centers run by the DOE that we call pre-K centers, but they're standalone schools for pre-K. And if you're ever feeling sad, give me a call and I will bring you to a center with 250 4-year-olds. And if you leave there sad, there is really something profoundly wrong with you. Third, we need to recruit teachers. Over the 2 years, we added 2,000 lead teachers and 2,000 part-time teachers. Obviously, nothing is more important than the quality of the people you have in the classroom. From 2014 to 2015, we focused a ton of recruitment efforts. We had a big recruitment effort online. We created early education hiring fairs around the city. We held teacher cultivation nights where candidates could come and work on their resumes, work on their interviewing skills, work on lesson planning to get them prepared for jobs. We launched Early Childhood Teacher Finder, a free online tool where early education centers could review pre-screened applicants, and where also centers could post job openings. We continue to work on and struggle with making sure that we're trying to achieve some kind of pay parity. For a number of reasons, we have very complicated issues in what we pay who, based on what kind of center you're in, and so we've tried to address some of those issues, although we have a long way to go. But we really worked on trying to build a system where we could bring in thousands of quality teachers into the system in a short period of time. So the fourth item on our list was getting children. And I think one of the things we realized early is that unlike Field of Dreams, that great Kevin Costner film, it's important to have baseball metaphors as a Mets. You didn't mention the Mets, which is the most important thing on that list of what you just said. That we knew that building the capacity didn't mean that children would come. This is a new benefit, a new service, explaining to parents what this meant, how do you find a program that it's okay to send your 4-year-old to a center, was a difficult task. And one of the early insights we have, and it may be that Mayor Bill de Blasio is at the end of the day originally a campaign operative, that it was sort of like a political campaign in the way we thought. We had to get a bunch of people to make a decision quickly and to take an action quickly. And so we organized it like a political campaign. We created something called the Pre-K Outreach Team, which is a team of folks that live in the Department of Education. Many of them, they're basically community organizers and people with campaign experience. And their job is to find families, to educate families, and to get those families to sign up and to walk them through the process. In a very complicated process, we sourced the names of tens of thousands of families who we thought had 4-year-olds, and we reached out to them in person, on the phone. We made over 300,000 phone calls this year, direct calls to people. We had ads. If you walked around anywhere in the city in the summer and you are holding a 4-year-old's hand or near a 4-year-old, people with blue shirts that say Pre-K for All descend on you. With application, they wave application in your face and ask you if you're signed up for Pre-K yet. We work with families in their native languages, so there's a really big outreach effort to not only communicate about the importance of Pre-K, but actually to walk families through the process, to really hold their hands. We created a powerful online tool called Pre-K Finder, where any family can enter an address. Maybe it's where you live, maybe it's where you work, and you can find Pre-K centers around that address. You can check their vacancies. You can see if they have special programs available to you. You call 311. They will walk you through the process and connect you to our specialized team at 311 that just does Pre-K outreach. You dial Pre-K you text Pre-K to 877-877. With your zip code, you will get a list back of centers near you, every way we could to get you information, including calling people after they're enrolled to make sure that they're happy with the process. And if they're not happy, helping them find another program. So a big effort to sort of get the word out to families. And we also, one thing I'm very proud of, designing special outreach programs for a population that we know are hard to reach. So we developed a strategy around homeless families, for example. And I'm proud to say that we have over 50% of families in shelter in New York City, over 50% of 4-year-olds in shelter in New York City are enrolled in full-day pre-kindergarten programs right now, which is up from about 35%. So again, it's not where we want to be. It's not as deep within the broader population. But you can only imagine for some of these children how having this area of stability in their lives, beyond all the educational benefits, is such a important effort. So also efforts to make sure that we are reaching specialized populations like English language learners and homeless families. One other thing we did this year that was very important was to create a universal application. So in the first year, you had to apply to every center individually. And so there are 10 centers you're interested in, you had to go to 10 different centers. Now we have one application. You can apply for up to 12 programs, whether they're public schools, whether they're pre-K centers, or whether they're private enterprises. You can rank your choices. Happy to say that we got 83% of families got one of their top choices. And so again, just everything we can to make the process as streamlined and easy as possible. But last, and certainly not least, is quality, the fifth item on our pre-K checklist. We've put a tremendous amount of effort in making sure that every single pre-K program is one where I or you or the mayor would be happy to send their child. Health and safety is job one, and I really can't describe to you the broad interagency effort designed to promote health and safety and to drive quality. We conducted over 19,000 inspections this year, leading into this year. Staff from the fire department, the buildings department, the health department, all working together in a way they never worked together before. Staff from the Department of Design and Construction, School Construction Authority, working overnight, late at night, to get buildings online. Partners like libraries, etc. And a great investment in quality, really beefing up the teams, particularly at the DOE, and building new support protocols to make sure that programs are getting support on the quality of instruction, introducing new curricula. We have a great partnership with NYU and Westat and others, where we are evaluating every single part of this program, from implementation to outputs and eventually to outcomes. So really making sure that these programs are high-quality programs that meet the true promise of pre-K. And look, we understand at a very basic level that we have to do this right, because if we don't do it right, it won't simply be a question of us not being good administrators. What people will say is that pre-K is a bad idea, it doesn't work, it doesn't have value. So we feel a responsibility not just to the children of the city, but to the entire country to make sure that this program delivers on its promise. So a year and a half later, we can now say that today in New York City, every child in New York, every 4-year-old who wants pre-K full day can have one. Right now, that's well over 65,000 children. We hope every year the uptake goes up, the demand goes up. And the truth is, I think that for most people who did not support us, and there are lots of folks that were not working with us to get this done, I think in most cases it's not because they didn't believe in pre-K. I think most people just didn't believe in the ability of cities to do big things for people. It seemed too ambitious, too bold, too grand. So I think, every day here in New York City, from pre-K for all to our affordable housing plan to ID NYC, we feel like we're proving that big things are possible in cities, that cities can do extraordinary, innovative, and bold things for their people. We are proving that the American dream can and must live in the Big Apple. I signed up for this job because I believe that every child deserves an equal opportunity to get on the right track. I know it's what you all believe. And so I just want to leave you, before I do, and before I leave you to the rest of your evening, with a quote. My favorite quote from my favorite poet, who I say in every speech, so I'm sorry if you've heard this 18 times before. But from Langston Hughes, who said, "America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be." So I think together what I would ask of all of you is to pledge with me, together, that we will keep fighting for that dream. Because the one thing I know is that fighting together is the only way to make the dream real. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be with you tonight.